please? Some of us are.
So I'm Ethan Conrad, and I'm here to talk about the specific plan amendment we have for the Sunrise Tomorrow plan. One thing that's really important, I think, that has gotten a little bit foggy sometimes is all we're proposing is that the allowed uses be a little less restrictive to allow logical retail uses. That's it. We're not proposing anything really beyond that. So we don't really have, the plans for phase 2 yet. It's really preliminary. So that's the one thing that's really important. So with that, I already touched on this a bit, but a little bit about our company. So we own about 11 million square feet. We have about over 2,000 tenants. And we've done a lot of projects that are similar to this one. What I enjoy doing is basically taking properties that are underutilized, that have vacancy, that have deferred maintenance, and make them better properties. Communities where we have properties are usually very happy to buy properties and we make improvements and they benefit the communities. So in terms of similar properties to this one, we own the Minnesota Marketplace in the city, Chico Marketplace in Chico, and we recently purchased, 6 months ago, the mall in Merced Marketplace. With all these properties, as you can see, we do a sudden, based on purchasing the property, we significantly increase tenant sales, which is a measurement of success, right? The more that is sold in a property means the more successful it is. So you can see that's big increases in the sales, both in Chico and in the city. You'll see the same thing in Merced. Merced's just it's not far along enough. But big increases in sales, especially this is impressive for the fact that in most malls, sales are declining. So we picked the right tenants and their sales are increasing. We actually received awards from the city from Yuba City and from Chico because the people were so happy there with what we did in terms of taking dying malls and making them really successful retail properties with benefits for those communities. Community engagement plan, so that's what we're doing right now, is engaging you in what our plans are for the property, to make sure we have the community input and have it be a win-win. Current status of the property, as you know, it's pretty close to death right now. Macy's is going to be closing very soon, within I think the next month. And when that happens, we're going to have a dead mall. And it's a concern because when Macy's shuts down, there's going to be more likelihood that that mall continues to decline. It will. With the current ownership, it will continue to decline. There's more likely that there's arson in there, which normally happens with vacant buildings. In fact, they're very hard to insure because what happens is homeless people go in there or people with vandalism and they make a fire in there to keep warm or whatever, and they end up causing an all or portion burning, and that's what happens so commonly with buildings that are vacant. So we need to move quickly on this before this turns into a dead mall. And the current status, so I talked about that a bit, but it's basically very close to a dead mall, which is the urgency behind it. What's a dead mall? A dead mall, the name speaks for itself, but there's dead malls across the country, and once a mall becomes really less than about 20% occupancy, it's considered a dead mall. And I'm sure probably what's going to happen is JCPenney will be closing soon, and then after Macy's closes, and then you'll have a completely vacant property. So we obviously don't want that, and need to move quickly on it, otherwise that's what's going to happen. So our proposal is really, again, it's just to relax the current zoning to allow logical uses. And that's what we talked about here. So we've got 2 phases for this property. The property that we currently own now, which is phase 1 on the right-hand side, and the rest of the property, which we're in escrow to purchase. Phase one is more urgent because that's what, now we have deals lined up for, which is primarily Home Depot. We've already got Sunrise Montessori School. In and out, we also have a proposal with Chick-fil-A. And so those tenants are first-class tenants, which would be allowed with just the allowed uses from the specific plan being relaxed a bit, which is really just allowing home improvement retailers, Home Depot, and drive-thrus, like in and out. I just touched on this, but that's, so phase two is the northern, approximately 50 acres of the property, which we're in escrow to purchase, but we do not own currently. We talked about merchandising plans. So what this is logical other tenants for the balance of the property. We don't have deals with yet because we don't own the rest of the property yet. But there are logical tenants like Bolero, which is Lucky Strike, which we do have a pending deal for them to lease about 50,000 square feet on the first floor of the former Sears building. That deal is really dependent on Home Depot. All these tenants, there's probably another really important thing. If we don't get Home Depot in here, and we don't get in and out here, these other tenants don't want to be there, okay? So, for example, Bolero, which is a state-of-the-art, it's the nicest bowling alleys in the country. They're very, very nice. They're like a nice Dave and Buster's. They're very nice. They're bowling primarily. Great entertainment, right? State-of-the-art. They have stated that they're not interested in being here unless Home Depot's here. If Home Depot's here, then they're interested. And that's what the logical thing that we really need to get the ball rolling by allowing these uses, allowing Home Depot to be there, for example, because that's what gets the ball rolling. Otherwise, it dies. But if you get good national tenants like Home Depot there, get in and out there, that then attracts other logical retail tenants. When you get other logical retail tenants, as it fills up, we can then be even more picky about which tenants we choose. But that's the name of the game of retail real estate, is having strong national tenants there as a baseline, because that's what brings other tenants' interest in it and then creates more of a synergy. So Sunrise Montessori School, I talked about them a little bit. Actually, that is allowed use in the current zoning. That's basically a state-of-the-art Montessori school. That's under construction right now. It's basically converting a former Sears service building into this use. But their tenant improvements are under construction now, and they'll be open, I believe, in about 2 months. Judy's Cleaners. Judy's Cleaners is basically a deal with currently for the former Sears automotive service building, and that they basically they have a division of the company in there, which is allowing basically it's striking of upholstery items and things of that nature, home goods. So the 5 big ideas I touched on, these were the original 5 ideas that were tied to the Sunrise Tomorrow specific plan. And this is just them evolving a bit, what we're proposing. So Sunrise Tomorrow, basically this concept is really that we're taking that specific plan and just modifying it a bit. We're letting it evolve, because what's happened is that when the specific plan was adopted 5 years ago, what happened, things have changed, right? So office space was once much higher demand than what it is today. So a lot of the specific plan, for example, is pertaining to building office buildings. Well, nobody's building office buildings right now because of COVID. That changed the amount of office vacancy. They did basically quadruple. So office buildings are no longer being built in the way that they were in the past. So we're basically taking this plan and updating it based on market conditions. And one important thing to keep in mind is that nobody controls market conditions. Nobody controls market demand, right? So when we have to provide what the interested demand for, which is tied to what then the community desire, in terms of what those consumers want to buy. So that updating, what we're talking about here, is really driven by market demand. And the fact, for example, that there's not a demand for office space like there was when the plan was originally written. So that's it for the presentation. For whatever
You think there's a growing demand for retail space?
I'm sorry?
A growing demand for retail space?
Yeah, I mean, so these deals, okay, so you just said mall, cheaper mall, marketplace were said, all of those, we filled them up on millions of square feet of retail space.
You have Home Depot and all those fast in and out burger places right there as well? Because they're usually on the freeway. They're not usually in the middle of somebody's city.
So one thing that's really important is, okay, I like nice things. Everyone likes nice things, right? Okay. So if you look at Palladio, right? Palladio's a beautiful development, right? But that market demand for those type of tenants is not here, okay? I don't control that. I don't, I like nice stuff. And this is nice stuff, but we can't control what those retailers, where they want it to be. So to answer your question, yes, I have a signed purchase agreement with In-N-Out, who's done a market study, which shows that there is demand for an In-N-Out.
There's always a demand for in and out, isn't it?
But let's put it this way, these retailers, let's say Home Depot, for example, they spend a lot of money making sure that they pick the right sites, right? And they want to pick a site that's highly successful, right? So they determine where their customers are. They run like a void analysis. They run all these different analyses. So the last thing they want to do is, put whatever, $40 million into a new store and not have it be successful, right? They're taking that economic risk, more so even than me. So the same thing with In-N-Out and the rest of them, they've determined that there's that demand. And, I can pitch it to all kinds of different tenants, right? But those are the ones that say, okay, we've determined that this location works. And so they're willing to pay the price. So, does that answer your question?
Well, I was just interested in you not seeing growth in office space, yet seeing growth, future growth, right, in retail space.
Oh, yes.
You do, because I'm
Well, let's put
not
it this way.
seeing it, I'm not feeling it, I see more boarded up, I see less traffic, I see.
Okay, so here's the best way to answer your question is, I'll give you two components that will answer your question. Okay, component number one, retail vacancy rate in Sacramento County right now is running about 5%. Office is running over 20%. So there's more than 4 times as much vacant office space as a percentage.
I'm not doubting office space. Oh, yeah, no. But your thoughts on retail space?
There's good demand with retail. There's good demand for retail. But retail is evolved. Right? So you're not seeing like Macy's or Nordstrom or those traditional, let's call them department stores going on leasing space. It's different types of retail. That's what's
Like here.
Like what?
So,
So you said that to kind of get this whole project started, you really need to have Home Depot move in first, get these other retailers. Do you have an agreement with Home Depot already for them to move in?
oh yeah, so I'm in escrow with Home Depot to buy 11 acres, which is on that. You could flip back to that one site plan, but yes, so I'm in escrow with them. They want to be here. They're very focused on being here. They wanted to be here for over 10 years.
So what's the timeline being able to get Home Depot in here and get them started?
So the first step is the specific plan amendment gets approved, presumably on April 23rd to City Council meeting. Then we would then go through the entitlement process, like the permits and things pertaining to Home Depot, which would probably be about 9 months. And then they get their permit and then they start building. So it's probably roughly a year from now. Something like that. Obviously, the sooner the better, because once this thing starts melting down, once, once Macy's closes, it's gonna decline pretty quickly.
Was the in and outing contingent with the Home Depot also, or is that a separate?
Theirs is separate. I would say that theirs is, it's not quite as correlated, like for example, with Valero, Lucky Strike. But they're all somewhat tied together because these national tenants, they're like sheep. They run in flocks. They basically, you get them all rolling, and then they all flock and go the same direction. Yeah, well, if you look at most retail centers, if you look at it, they're all tied to national tenants, right? And then you have more local tenants come in almost later, but they were all tied to having one or more anchor tenants. In this case, Home Depot. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi. I noticed when you're going through the slides, there was something about livable space. I think when I first heard about this, it was going to be a combination of some livable space for people interspersed. And then you also had green spaces. Is that going to be wiped out with the Home Depot idea, or?
No. So actually,
What about the livable? I'm real
but-
concerned about what that meant or what you guys.
Right. So, multifamily is an area we have like targeted right there. That's a logical area. That area might, ultimately be bigger or a little bit smaller depending on market demand, right? But that, when we look at that as being a logical area. As far as green space, so we have this setup. It basically is designed preliminarily as being like a community gathering area. And then we have the other one that's in green. We have actually a signed deal with an EV charging company. So EV chargers. But basically, I should say this side though is more preliminary because I don't know it yet. And the first step is getting phase 1 approved. Then we're going to phase 2.
It also seems like it'd be great to have a movie theater, because if you're going to have a community gathering place, or like you said, the bowling, something besides just stores, because there's already millions of stores.
Right.
It seems like everywhere you look.
So basically, the way this all goes is we get Home Depot approved. We allow that specific plan for that. That then brings us Valero, which is state-of-the-art, 50,000 square foot bowling alley, entertainment center. We have a restaurant in there and everything else. It's an entertainment center. That then paves the way for doing a movie theater deal, right? Because movie theaters like to be next to other entertainment because in a perfect world, they kind of feed off of each other, right? But that's how you get, it all starts with one deal, Home Depot, and then it basically, it snowballs from there.
Not a guarantee, that's definitely fluid.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions. Down in the corner by the US Bank, I heard that it's supposed to be a hotel. Is that still in the works? Do you know anything about that?
I don't own that property, and that came from the developer who bought the US Bank building.
Okay.
I think it's still in the works. I have not heard that much about it.
They need
Well,
an investor.
my concern is that if the people that were slated to open the hotel did it based on the promises that exist in the Sunrise Tomorrow plan, is it fair then for those developers that now we're taking away a plan and they can be surrounded by Home Depots and fast food joints when those weren't the promises that were in place for them? And my second concern with taking away that overlay where now you can allow Chick-fil-A's or In-N-Out is, my understanding on the Planning Commission is that once that overlay is taken away, as long as they meet the criteria, the Planning Commission cannot deny them. So then that can be an entire Burger King, Taco Bell, Chick-fil-A, all of it in one row, and there's nothing that anybody can do once we take away what everybody has already put in place. What promises do you have that we're not going to end up with Hamburger Hill?
So, the first question, the hotel developer, we can contact them if you like, but I'm 100% sure they'll be happy to see viable deals, right? The problem with the specific plan as it's currently written Nobody's interested in doing it. No developer is interested in doing it. No developer wants to do what that plan shows. And so that means it's just gonna sit there and decay. That's, mark my words, 100% certainty. It'll sit there and decay. So what we're providing is something that is economically viable, that we've got real deals that are ready to go, that any other developer, like hotel developer, will want, okay? Second question, on the pads, having other, drive-throughs and so forth, that's all market demand. So what that means is that what we're proposing is that drive-throughs would be, they would be allowed from a zoning perspective. They still have to meet all the criteria, right? So they have to meet the criteria, the traffic study, the conditional use permit, having the stacking so that their cars don't overflow onto the streets, that everything is, they have to check all the other boxes. So we're not, it's not like it automatically opens things up to where like they have to approve it. They don't. And really, it's economic demand. So for example, we've got, BJ's interested in the former, Outbacks, yes. Okay, so that's a non-drive-through use, but it's a logical use because it's about the right size, right? So it's not like we have some sort of emotional tie to drive-throughs. We just want to have economic deals that make sense.
But BJ's could operate under the current plan, correct? We don't have to adjust anything to
They're
allow
not
BJ's.
interested. They've declined it 3 times based on unless there's retailers surrounding it, like the ones we're describing. So unless there's drive-throughs allowed, BJ's is not interested in being there.
They ask for drive-throughs or they ask for other businesses? Those are 2 separate statements.
Oh yeah, they've asked for other restaurants that would be surrounding them, which basically they've said, we want drive-throughs. If we don't have drive-throughs allowed, no, you laugh, but this is how it works. Let's put it this way. All I do is commercial real estate. That's all I've done my entire life, okay? I went from like nothing to being very successful because I deliver what the tenant wants, right? I don't control them, right? So when it comes to, someone like BJ's, they basically said it. Unless there's drive-throughs allowed, they don't want to be there.
But I see them operating everywhere without drive-throughs, such as at the Galleria. And as a restaurateur, it makes sense to have a restaurant next to a restaurant because that's where people go. You go to the restaurant area. But that's different than removing that protection that's already in place.
So here the problem is this. If you don't, BJ's has said they want to have it being economically viable around it. So they would want other restaurants around it. The restaurant demand today for those pads is drive-through.
So
Okay?
BJ's won't
Not
be
like
there.
all of them, but that's really what most of the demand is. So if you don't allow drive-through, you then are eliminating BJ's.
When you say restaurant demand for those pads, where does that information come from? Is that the restaurant demand that the community has asked for, or based on the traffic studies that say this is a thoroughfare? Of course, there's going to want to have fast food, which is why we put those protections.
Based on market demand. So in other words, we've been, because of owning this property already and basically marketing it, we've hit like literally well over 100 restaurants. And the demand here is primarily drive-through. So I don't control this, right? I mean, I pitched it to lots of non-drive-through restaurants, but the market demand is really about 90% of it is drive-through, right? So if we need to satisfy that, and then that then in turns brings in non-drive-through areas like BJ's. And so this is it's something I control. This is just, it's market demand.
I have a Home Depot question since you're preemptively in contract with them. As a lot of you guys know, I'm in Case of Tuscany. We've been there 16 years. We're in a Home Depot shopping center. So I have some concerns. Home Depot buys their land and typically they put protections in it when they buy it. And that dead mall you were talking about has literally been the dead center that I've lived in for the better part of 14 years. Because Home Depot restricts what can go into my center even though they don't own the land. So anything that's a compete, whether it's paint, relays, I mean, California Backyard wanted to come in, and because they sold furniture and so does Home Depot, they weren't allowed to come in.
A barbecue place.
Barbecue place wanted to come in, and I forget what that reason was. So I ended up with like smoke shops and really crappy retailers that want that desired space that has a negative impact of transients. That Home Depot on Antelope there is leads Northern California in retail theft of over $7 million a year. Hopefully the new proposition law helps a little bit with that. But I can tell you that Home Depot does not make my restaurant better. It's not beneficial to me. The day workers that they allow to hang out there, that they won't work with Sacramento County Sheriff with, and that's something that can be verified through the Sacramento County Sheriff. I don't see how a Home Depot makes our community better.
We were told.
I mean, it makes your investment better by all means. That's a huge chunk that it takes off from you. I just don't see how it makes that whole area better.
Well, so to answer your question, it makes it better because it makes this economically viable. It makes it so that other good national tenants, BJ's, IKEA has said they don't want to be here unless Home Depot's here.
I can't think of any of those places next to a Home Depot.
But it's not necessarily that they're next to them. It's that a large national retailer, who's probably one of the best retailers in the world, is Home retailer, Home Depot, if they want to be somewhere, In-N-Out wants to be somewhere, those other national tenants follow. I don't dispute anything you said about the center, but
it's more than just a slight change to the Sunrise Pacific, right?
Okay. So those use restrictions that you're describing would not apply in this instance. So those other logical retail uses are somewhat complementary, they're not direct competitors, those would be allowed. You've been holding your hand forever.
I really have. So
I was planning on you on the forefront.
You know, I will wait 2 hours. So if we're not with all the niceties, or even half of the niceties, why the hell would IKEA want to come? What the hell would our community do with an IKEA? If we are not that demographic that you can bring us something that the community has stated they want. Now, maybe that plan does need to be adjusted some. That means you should be willing to negotiate to give us some of what we want, because you're automatically getting what you want. So I just got one question. At one of the meetings I was at, they said you're going to put storage units in the Cedars. Is that true? Storage units.
Storage units
Inside of the Cedars. Is
So
that true?
the logical spot for having some, basically, storage and/or mini storage, the one logical spot is on the basement of the former Cedars. So most people don't even know that there's a basement down there that basically has the loading docks that come into it. Mm-hmm. That would be the one logical spot. I would never put, mini storage in a retail center because it's not a good retail use. But a basement, I'm all about like highest and best use, okay? So a basement, you can't really use it for, retailers don't want to be in a basement, right? So what do you use it for? Well, storage is a really good use, right? Because it doesn't, there's not other uses that would want to be there. No retailer would want to be there, right? It's hard enough
I have to go ask these people. I'm going to go call all these corporate offices, and I'm going to demand they tell me that, well, exactly what you said. You don't think I can do that? I can, because there's no reason for these people to tell you I only want to be there. It's like telling me I got to marry this raggedy, ugly ass, broke man just because he has a plot of land somewhere. I mean, just because you can do this doesn't mean you should do it that way. Maybe you should consider how we want things to be. Just a little bit. We ain't asking you to just get rid of all your money.
Okay, so I ain't here, I wouldn't be here, right? So I'm here, right, because I'm wanting to answer questions, right, and get people's input and things of that nature. And let me just, maybe I should back it up and say it like this. What I'm telling you, my suggestion is to believe me. If you want to verify, you can, but I'm telling you the truth. I mean, this is all I've ever done. I've done like 25,000 commercial real estate deals, okay? So this is what I'm telling you is factual information. You go for it to verify, but it's factual information.
You have the ability to give us some of what we want. You have enough money. Like you said, you've done this your whole career. I looked at all your properties. You bought the Renaissance building for $21 million, and I've seen your plan. You are doing phenomenal things in other communities. Can we have a little bit of that? Just a little
Yeah,
bit.
so I mean, okay. Oh, how do I put it? The reason why Yuba City and Chico, why they give us awards, and why, if you call up the mayors of those cities and say, did Ethan Conrad Properties do a good job in remodeling those malls and bringing in new tenants and so forth, they're going to tell you that they're ecstatic, okay? That's why they gave us awards. That's why, you know, we're talking about doing the same thing and those.
Did you put Home Depot over there too?
Let me finish. So, I'm talking about doing the same thing. So, you know, that is, call up the mayor of Yuba City or call up the mayor of Chico. I mean, seriously, if you don't believe me, call them up. What we did there is a great thing for the communities, right? That's what we're talking about here. So I'm not like wanting to take something away from the community. I want to give it, I want to have this property not be an embarrassment to the community by having a decaying mall with no tenants in it. And that's what we're really close to.
Is there anything else you can put there?
Let me say something else. It's going to be like ugly. It's going to look like, I mean, it's going to be a disaster. It's going to be an embarrassment to the city of Citrus Heights.
It already is.
Well, it's going to be a whole lot worse if we don't move quickly on this. If we don't, I mean, seriously, I can't say it enough, but we should look at it as being, we're very fortunate that Home Depot and In-N-Out and these other great tenants want to be here. Let them be here. I mean, that's so much better than having something that's vacant and decaying, right? You got option A is, let's put great tenants in there that bring a huge amount of dollars in tax, sales tax revenue that benefit the community because those dollars go into our schools, goes into police departments, benefits to the community, right? In addition to having those goods and services there and not having to drive quite as far for an In-N-Out burger. It's right there. And that is something the city can be proud of as opposed to something that's decaying and something that's bad that's getting worse, right? That's what we don't want.
We're gonna need that money because when the police have to run up back and forth over to Home Depot because the sheriff doesn't operate out here, you're gonna need that money. So this is, I came from Kentucky, from Fort Knox. This is like a shotgun wedding is what I'm feeling. So everybody, get on board now and be willing to deal with the drama that you're gonna have when you let all these little chains, and anytime you see these places, they're on the freeway. You don't see them in cities, and when you see them, you see what's around them. Traffic, drama, waiting, nightmare. That's all it's gonna be. So, I mean, if we wanna do this, can we have something to go with it? Understand negotiate. Can we have something to go with it? Like, I want ice cream with my cow. Can I have something to go with it? Do you just get to get everything you want? Or can we have, as a community, something we want? And even though you don't like the plan, it's still what we wanted. So we're willing to step through this. We understand we gotta take the ugly man with bad teeth or something. But, and that's not you, you're very charming and you're handsome. But I'm just saying, this offer you're putting on the table is shit. No, you're good. But the offer you're putting on the table is shit because you're not considering the rest of us. And we live here. You don't even live here.
Let me lay it out like this one more time. Okay, so all we're talking about here, is relaxing the allowed uses so that for home improvement retailers, Home Depot, and for drive-thrus that those uses are allowed. That's it. Nothing else.
And you're not gonna just run through and say everything, huh?
Listen, let me finish. Okay, so that's it. So, and maybe I should say this again. So once we get this rolling, right? Okay, we get Home Depot in there, we get In-N-Out, get Bolero, that snowball grows, right? And so what happens is, as we grow into the rest of the center, we can become even more choosy, right? Because at the end of the day, the perfect world is we have 2 or 3 tenants that want to be in each space, right? And then the input from the community as far as what those tenants have desired, they can give that input, and we can choose between the tenants. I mean, I don't,
Can't you-
and, you know, I mean, one of the things I like about doing what we do is we make improvements to the communities where we own buildings. That's why we got awards from Yuba City and Chico.
But you're right here, why can't we
And
just
so,
choose for
so
you?
then let me finish. Did your mom ever teach you everything else people are supposed to?
No, we're military, no, no.
So, but the point is, we can, we're not talking about approving all kinds of uses, no matter what they are, or giving up control. We're just making it, we're updating a plan so it's more economically feasible, right? That's it. So, and we can, certainly I like having nice tenants and nice, you know, properties and having it look good and all those things. And I don't, that's, how do I say it? That is giving back to the community because that's the reason why these other communities are so happy with what we've done, okay? So I'm all for that. I mean, and I'll also say this, if communities are more happy with the development, that development is only going to be more successful. So it's all kind of rolled together. I mean, it's not like I don't want everyone to have tenants that communities don't want or things of that nature. So, go ahead.
Would logical use include car washes and gas stations and other automotive type
No.
uses? No.
No, I'm not proposing any gas stations or car washes or anything like that. If anything, we've already got a signed lease with, I think it's 21 charging stations with EVgo that will be under development soon. So you'll see more things like that. And I recognize, you know, what I'm proposing is something, well, that's what it is. The problem with gas stations and car washes is they're a little down and dirty, right? And we don't want anything down and dirty here. But, so if you have state-of-the-art drive-thru restaurants like In-N-Out, Chick-fil-A, those are cream of the crop, really nice restaurants. And half the people go in there and eat. I mean, they're nice, right? So that's what we're proposing. I don't want to have anything that would degrade that.
Okay, so you had talked about when you get the, I know, we've all been doing it. So, you had talked about you get those in, there'll be more control. Back to the control, that speaks something that kind of got lost in everything else. He mentioned Taste of Italy, the one on Antelope that I know of, because I go by there. Will they have, because you're talking about control, where you have more control over who comes in as you have more tenants, right?
Yes.
So, to what he was talking about, isn't the things that Home Depot is signing to move in there, are they going to have any say on what comes in around them, business-wise? Now, their property, the area they control, their parking lot, fine. Are they going to have that same control he's talking about?
So
What businesses come around after they're there?
So Home Depot would only have some control over this area right here.
So they would have control on your entire slice of property.
Just this small portion, which there's no real uses.
2/3 of it?
Would be, no, so this is 25 acres, well, you could say a third of the entire amount. But, so that would be the only thing that would have some logical control.
If you do get control of the other parts, is the way the contract's written now that they will then have some control over what goes into the areas you don't own.
No, I would not need to check.
So the contract you have now says only the property that you own now, in a certain area of that property, do they have control over?
Correct.
Yeah, they can't go after anything he doesn't own now.
No, but I.
If he owned it now, it'd be a different
No, but you
conversation.
could write in that if he gets the other area,
Nah.
you could write, I just want an answer from him.
No, I got you,
I
I got
understand
you.
what you're saying.
That's why he wants to close it now.
I want to hear from him, not you. Thank you. So you're saying no.
Correct.
Thank you. That's all I want to know.
Any question?
With regard to Home Depot and the other operations that you've won awards at, is there a Lowe's right across the street? That would be my first question. As a retired contractor, I love both of them,
Right.
Lowe's and Home Depot.
Right.
And when Lowe's went in where they did, because I live nearby, I started shopping at Lowe's. And Home Depot occasionally had things that Lowe's didn't have, or they had a different variety. But we're saying from a practical standpoint, Home Depot has done their research and they feel that they can be competitive with Lowe's at the same level as they would be in a place where there isn't another Lowe's?
Correct. So, yeah, for example, actually, I have an email, I don't know if we posted on the website or not, but I have an email from the real estate director nationally for Home Depot that says, we have vetted this site, we've done our market studies, and we're ready to proceed forward with it, okay? And so, by the way, when companies, big companies like this, when they do their market analysis and they reach a conclusion, half the time I might look at it and go, whoa, geez, that doesn't seem right. And I'm pitching them a site and they decline it. And they say, we're declining it and here's why, or whatever. Half the time they say why, okay? But once they reach a conclusion, what you and I logically think and look at and go, well, that wouldn't, why are they right across the street, right? But that's their conclusion. And so through the myriad of different components that they put into that analysis, their conclusion, they've learned.
They feel that they can be competitive with Lowe's
100%.
in that location.
100%.
In the places that you have gotten all these awards, what businesses have you put in those shopping centers where you got awards?
A lot. So,
Retail like Home Depot or?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, let's take Yuba City. So, Yuba City, we did, well, in no particular order, we're running Hobby Lobby, very popular there. We did Hobby Lobby deal, Five Below, Burlington, and the list goes on. I mean, there's like, we probably done 20, we probably numerous multiple new tenants. Most of them were new to market, so they were new to that area. Same thing with Chico. You know, we brought in lots of tenants that were new to that market. They did extremely well.
Well, just in the 3 of the 4 names that you mentioned, Hobby Lobby, we have one next to Lowe's. Five Below, we have one across the street. Okay? You have these other retailers that were in these other award-winning malls, but they already have the presence here. And in looking at the list that you had previously with all of the possible businesses that are going in there, I noticed that there were a number of them that are already here. And so it looks like, as far as that's concerned, that you'd be looking for something other than what we already have,
A
obviously.
mixture of both. So, I mean, the way that these retailers work is they run analyses, because they call it like a void analysis typically. But basically, they determine some are relocations of existing stores, right? Let's say they have a store that they used 20 years ago, and now they're bigger or smaller, you know, their footprint has evolved, right? So that would be one reason for moving. But most of them would be new to this area. So like,
Okay,
you know,
that answers that question.
Yes.
Are you looking to incorporate the existing building that you have now as part of phase 2? Or is that going to be demolished and something else built up?
So, in terms of making this economically viable, making it so you can offer deals to tenants or buyers that would own and occupy the building, generally speaking, the logical thing to do is to try to keep as much of the existing buildings as possible. Okay? So, for example, on the Macy's boxes, you know, a logical reuse of one of those boxes would be to turn it into an IKEA store, right? IKEA stores can be multi-level stores, they typically are, right? But you take a Macy's box, looks pretty tired or whatever, you put some lipstick on it, you put some new facades on it, make it look like a new building, which is not usually that expensive, and then you can lease it to somebody or something.
Okay, that's understandable. I appreciate that.
So, and that's how you make an economically viable, right? So the current specific plan, it shows demoing everything. And all these buildings, which is completely wasteful. I mean, it makes no logical sense at all. You want to try to keep something that you can, right? So if you have, I mean, this section of the mall in here, I see this more as like junior anchors. Tenants would be like 15 to 20,000 feet, okay? But the boxes, you know, like Macy's, you wouldn't, I mean, demoing buildings like that and then building new buildings in their places makes it so it's not economically viable. It's just too expensive, right?
Sure.
But if you get one of those boxes now and you go to somebody like IKEA and you say, hey, I bought this pretty cheap, I can offer you great rent, and then we can make it look like new. That's pretty tempting, right?
Definitely.
So you try to keep as much as what you can, is the basic.
But you talked about things that you don't actually own now, so we gotta depend on you to keep your word, to buy the property and do what we're asking you to do, because we're accepting this over here. So I'm like, what guarantees you're gonna do any of that? Do you own the BJ, where you would put the BJs? Do you own the old Elephant Bar?
I know, I'm escrow buying the 50 acres from them.
Does escrow depend on community or anything like that, or are you getting support, or the city doing anything?
It's, I'm in my contingency period with Amdar, which is tied to the specific plan. Yep, so it's tied together.
Well, how do we know you're gonna keep your promise? It ain't like we can do nothing to you. We live here and you don't.
Because when you gotta tell me something nice. Give me nice speak for something.
I don't like you. You're a very nice man.
Okay.
But I mean, I'm just asking the hard questions.
Okay, so those, to answer your question, all we're asking for something is really preliminary, right? So for every building permit, for every conditional use permit, for anything like that, the city of Citrus Heights planning department and the building department, and really the community would need to give their approval. They need to give their input, right? So it's not like the city of Citrus Heights or the residents give up any control.
Is there any talk of Starbucks going in there?
Yeah, we have talked to Starbucks, but we do not have a current deal with them.
Good. I just one circle back question on the Home Depot, just from my own experiences. Is there going to be discussion, at least hopefully with the city on this, for any possible necessarily need for a P-bid in the future? I'm sure you're familiar with P-bids.
Yeah.
Our particular area, they've been trying to get one to go in for forever. I think the Sunrise Market area currently does have a P-bid. My experience with Home Depot, Walmart, your big box changes, they provide their own security, so they're not going to put money into a P-bid. And then what happens is that money has to go passed on to the other tenants, or it just simply doesn't happen. So like in our area, they've been trying to get an active P-bid for 14 years, but because Home Depot and Walmart refuses to take part in that P-bid, we don't have a P-bid. So we just basically have an underserved area of the county in which the county says, hey, we don't have enough officers. We're sorry that we call your little parking lot Fanny Hill, but there's nothing we can do unless you get a P-bid. My concern is with Home Depot, because I'm in the Home Depot Center, is that environment duplicates itself here in Citrus Heights, and now we have a tenant that's going to refuse to participate with a P-bid, which right now that P-bid is what's kind of keeping that area safe. And if that gets removed, what happens then? So is there a discussion at least with that, with the Home Depot, is my question?
That has not been talked about, but I don't know, I'm all for P-bids. If our company owns real estate, if we have an opportunity to participate in a P-bid, we do.
Oh, yeah.
And so, because we've determined that generally speaking, P-bids are good value, and they basically make an area better, right? So, I mean, literally, we pay over $500,000 a year in P-bid contributions. It's a big number. So, I'm certainly for it. I don't know that I can control Home Depot on, land that they would own, but they're, I wouldn't be able to control them, but we would have our vote for sure. And it's already in place, it's already.
No, I knew that, but I didn't know if it would extend.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. My questions are centered around community involvement. So before COVID, when things were pretty nice going and we were considering the future of the property, so at the Sunrise Tomorrow, they had these workshops that the community was invited to participate in. They were held in the Sears building when it was vacant. And from what I read, about 300 people attended. I was one of those. And basically, there were brainstorming sessions to get ideas from the community. And it seemed like some of those things were going to take fruition, but then COVID hit. So my question to you is, are you planning on holding, where do you see, when and where could similar workshops be held to get community input?
I'm flexible, if you guys want to have them there, that's fine with me. Yeah.
They were pretty well attended, and you could see the results of it. If you go to, if you go inside the current mall, it's operational, in that area that says that where the Sunrise Marketplace offices are, there are these large boards that show like outlines of the mall and photos, like aerial views, and then they have post-its where people put their ideas, and different boards have different themes. So,
That could be a good idea, having one there, I think that's a good idea. Thanks for the suggestion. Yeah, that's certainly receptive to it. Yeah.
thank you.
But could there be like conditional use permits for Home Depot for the day use people standing around outside the parking lot of Home Depot? Is there a way to put that in the planning commission, to say that was conditional use, that they would have to put some kind of security or?
That's an interesting question. I don't,
Because I know like when the planning commission would do like, tractor trailers can only come in this specific time, and they can only do specific things at specific time, but I wonder if that was because they use people standing around the parking lot.
I'll ask about that. I don't, a valid point, I'm not, that's not been voiced yet. I would think, let me do some research on that. I don't know offhand, but it's a valid point.
I think that would incorporate in the fee.
Right.
I know when we hold, once a month at Taste of Tuscany, we do a business watch meeting, and we have representatives from County Supervisor Desmond's office, County Supervisor Rodriguez's office. We have members of SAC Sheriff, the CHP, and representatives from the District Attorney's office, and they have all said the same thing in regards to the day laborers. While Home Depot has what they call a no contact, a do not deter policy, because the district attorney has asked the manager of Home Depot to please start trespass noticing the day laborers so that they can have a universal policy in the parking lot. Unfortunately, when she has talked to Home Depot specifically says we have a no contact. They don't deter the day laborers, so they cannot actually issue a trespass notice for them because they allow the day laborers. The district attorney has a hard time enforcing trespass notices to drug-using transients.
But I'm saying now we're in the planning stages, that it will become a conditional use part of the planning commission, and that could be something that could be put in, saying this is part of the conditional use of that property, for them to get the permits to build.
Well, that'd be up to you.
I'm certainly receptive to it, my support.
They should cooperate, but they would have to cooperate.
I'll represent it with Home Depot, but let's put it this way. If the city of Citrus Heights said, as a condition of approval of this use and this permit, Home Depot being located there, then there wouldn't be any day labor that those issues we talked about are addressed so that they would be able to trespass somebody. All those things addressing those issues, I already have my support. I think it makes logical sense to me. Good.
I don't know how receptive, I don't know, but my only just popped in my head is with the primary ethnic background of day laborers being Hispanic, there may be an issue in putting forth laws that could be considered targeting that demographic, as the city attorney may not want that to happen, but I don't know.
I would think if it was drafted correctly, I would hope it wouldn't be, because it's really not targeted towards certain ethnicity. It's really targeted towards not having people standing around soliciting labor, regardless of what nationality they are, right? So I think that's a valid point, and certainly, my support on it.
So I see you have in and out on there. I've traveled up and down the state. I have never seen an in and out this far away from a freeway. do you have an agreement with them? Is this something new they're dealing with? Because just seeing something, I've never seen an In-N-Out that's 7 miles from each freeway.
Yeah, so In-N-Out, I have a signed purchase agreement with them, they're in escrow, they've completed their market studies, and they're just waiting for the specific plan to be approved. And then they'll proceed forward in the timelines. So, to answer your question, you'll find In-N-Outs, if you Google In-N-Outs locations, you'll find them away from the freeway. Their target locations are closer to the freeway, you're right, but they're also, you'll see them when there's a certain amount of people, amount of rooftops in a certain area, they don't need to be near a freeway. It's all about their target, all the retailers. They run these studies and they're like, okay, well, they expect that there's X amount of customers that they have, or they're in like a certain drive time radius of the location, and if it checks the boxes on that, that's what they know that their location will work. It's basically satisfying their demand. It's making, uses so that like this, so that people aren't having to drive as far, waste gas and time and so forth, create smog, unnecessarily, because then they have those locations that much closer.
The other question is, I see your plan. What I'm missing is California requires us to provide housing, and this is a large property. And if the city were to grant what you want, that would mean that we'd have to require somebody else to provide housing to meet our California housing requirements in order to get our gas taxes. So how does approving this help alleviate the housing crisis in the state? If none of your land there has any housing, but has a need, but so that's not your property though?
No, it's a property next door.
Okay, so.
Then I'm asking to buy.
Okay, so what you're saying is that if you buy that property, it would be solely dedicated to housing?
So what I'm thinking is, I would target that area because I see that that's a logical area for multifamily. It's not a good retail area, it's a good multifamily area. I would target basically having it developed for multifamily use. I can't force somebody to build it, right? But I can encourage them and I can target that logical use. I mean, so in the real estate game, what it is you're looking at the highest and best use for different areas, right? And so that's how I view that area.
So looking at, why couldn't you just put the housing right behind the Home Depot and then shorten your parking lot? Because it doesn't look like you have a lot in there at all. And then you have the housing right next to existing apartments right there.
There's a myriad of different reasons why, but Home Depot requires this location based on having a sufficient parking field on both areas, and there needs to be sufficient distance between Home Depot and Sunrise Montessori School. I can go into it for in an hour, but there's multiple reasons why. And the biggest thing is you can encourage having residential in being a logical location. And you can't really how do I say it? You can't force it too much, but you can. I mean, I'm certainly this to me I look as a logical area. We should focus on that.
But it sounds like you already have agreements with In-N-Out, Montessori School, and Home Depot to make it look this way.
Yes.
Okay, so even if we were to say one thing, the agreements are something completely different.
The agreements basically look like this.
Okay, so.
And so I can't just say, hey, Home Depot, you want to move up here and do that?
Oh, that's
it all
what they
starts
said
on
in the
the
last meeting.
You've already had a negotiated agreement. This plan is not really up for us to have a discussion about. It's really about us approving the already negotiated plan that has already been made.
Yes, but that's not what we were told.
No, really what this is we're talking about just, I mean, we're here at the beginning.
You're absolutely right.
So all we're talking about here is modifying the specific plan so that it is updated to allow logical retail uses. That's it.
So you can do that, though, correct? You're not gonna do anything different from that. You want to do that. Am I correct?
Do that mean?
That was in the parking lot. But I'm just saying, when we say, oh yeah, you can do it, you can go get it, this is what we're looking at, correct? Nothing's gonna move. You're not gonna say, well, we'll move home because you just told Charles you would move it. So it's gonna stay the way it is. Am I correct?
Well, within reason, yeah. So I mean, I don't have deals like on this parcel right here.
Put our gallery over there.
Here,
Put our gallery.
actually, it's along these lines, is really what we're talking about. Go ahead. By the way, I got 12 minutes, but let's go, yeah.
I do appreciate your time.
Thank you.
The infrastructure underneath Sunrise Mall is aging. The sewer, the electrical, all that kind of stuff. Citrus Heights has been successful in getting SACOG funds for past improvements. And a big part of that has been public transportation and minimizing automotive use. Would adding drive-through restaurants jeopardize Citrus Heights' chances of getting future SACOG grants to do street and infrastructure improvements?
Not that I'm aware of. No one is, well, let's put it this way. That was brought up several months ago, but I believe that there's no impact on it.
What is this?
I have two questions. So one is, if you're able to get that other part of the property, the existing mall that's there right now, is it still going to be, or part of it going to be an indoor mall, or is each building and business going to be separate in that building? So that's my first question. My other question, probably more important, is with everything that's kind of happening politically with tariffs and all that kind of stuff, the cost of construction is supposed to increase, most likely because of material costs. With all that stuff happening, if the material cost starts end up being a lot more expensive, is this going to derail your plans at all?
So question number one, so when the malls are basically modernized, they have way too much what they call shop space. All those interior shops is way too much, right? So I would envision that this area right here, as I touched on earlier, becomes junior box space. So larger tenants that would kind of run front to rear, and then more in here, same thing, where there's lots of little shop space, you have like 70% less of those. So you've got more bigger tenants and less of those interior smaller tenants, because there's just not the market demand that there was for those small interior spaces. So you'd have some interior shop space, but a lot less. And then, your construction costs.
Yeah.
So with the anticipated construction costs increases, that means that what we're proposing is that much more economically viable, right? So what was shown on the current specific plan is basically demoing everything there and starting over with all new buildings. Well, that by itself is a dead deal, because it's not economically viable to pay a huge amount of money to demo all these buildings, some of which are perfectly fine buildings, and then build all new buildings, right? It's just not, it's wasteful, it makes it so that
But your plans that you have now were several months ago before all this tariff stuff started happening, so I'm assuming you probably didn't have that cost already pre-planned into what you're wanting to do now. Now with everything changing, they say if everything increases 25% for construction costs, is that gonna, like I say, derail your plans or stop like this whole construction project?
it makes it that much more viable, right? Because if I'm competing, let's say with, let's say IKEA, okay, so let's say IKEA is looking at buying some land and building a building. Well, they're gonna have to pay all new building costs, right? If they take an existing building, existing former Macy's building, and they convert it to an IKEA, it's a whole lot less construction materials, right, that goes into remodeling an existing building versus building a new one. So the answer to it makes it that much better for existing buildings.
So you're saying then the tariffs, everything that happens in the future cost would not affect this at all?
No, it means things like that, when things like that happen, it makes existing buildings become more valuable. It makes it actually so that like rent goes up, right? Because construction costs go up, rent goes up, right? Because that's how you get to the rent that makes sense, is you build in the construction cost, right? But it makes existing buildings that much more valuable. So.
This is kind of not completely my question, but it kind of goes off what he was saying about what ifs. So we've done the, if this happens, what happens with you if this doesn't happen? If either things don't go through, or if the city doesn't approve the plan? What is your game plan in the back of your head? What's going to happen if it doesn't get approved, or something else falls through?
That's a good question. Yeah, so if this specific plan amendment didn't get approved, I would not buy them at all. I wouldn't buy the 50 acres I'm in escrow for now.
The rest of it?
It's basically all of this, and so that 50 acres of land I would not buy.
I thought there was 90-something acres out there.
The total, so if you include like JCPenney and there's other ones, that gets to 90.
But you'd have to buy.
By the way, when JCPenney wants to sell me their building too, I don't want to even engage with them buying it until a specific plan is approved. If a specific plan is not approved, we got an ugly situation here.
Well, everybody seems to want you, but I don't want everything you offer. So I'm just concerned about what you're going to put there. So like the man said, if we take that, we do want something better. Okay, we got to promise something better. Like, if we marry you, we want babies.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, you're gonna have that control, one, and two, I like nice things too. I mean, I like, honestly, when we're developing a project like this, or the ones we did in Chico and Yuba City, whatever, I enjoy the process that, I mean, look at it this way. With a lot of these projects, if you just take like Yuba City, down the mall, I probably had over 250 people sending me thank you notices, emails, texts, different communicating in different ways, right? But people were thankful of that. That's why they give us an award. I mean, that's what we do, is we make something better for our community, right? As opposed to something that is really bad. It becomes vacant, it becomes, eyesore, a bad eyesore. And I think that's fun. I think it's fun if you can, honestly, if you can make money at something that's a benefit to a community, that's pretty good, right?
Let me ask you for you, sir. Can you summarize the pushback you've had on this particular plan that you're talking about tonight? Just summarize.
The pushback?
Yeah.
I would say that, yeah, so that's a good question. I would say that people, with this specific plan as it's currently placed, those images, those renderings and things like that, it looks nice, right? So when you, I don't disagree, it looks nice.
The follow-up will be, how have you addressed it?
I'm sorry?
The follow-up question will be, how have you addressed it? Those pushbacks, those specific pushbacks, where they were brought to your attention, how have you addressed it to appease the crowd or something?
Well, I would say, so, residential component, so residential component tied to that, an open space component we tied to that over here. So I would say there's some, let's put it this way, we haven't gotten, the pushback, I think, has been more people needing to have more complete information, right? So I guess I look at it like that, right? So
All I've heard was Home Depot.
Was that?
That seems like a big topic, Home Depot. Right, but I think I'd like to keep this.
Yeah, so I think that,
More information.
and let me put it this way, when you look at the specific plan that was in place in those renderings, do they look nice? Yeah, but would I want to build something like that? Yeah. Is there market demand for it? No. So we can't change market demand, right? And like showing those office buildings and all that stuff, and nobody's so.
I'm reading the text, what is it, yeah, potentially, and I'm saying, yeah, I want that, but why not? It makes sense.
Right.
So the objection, where you at? So that's good.
Yeah, and I think it's mainly, I understand what you guys are saying. And at the end of the day, obviously the city of Citrus Heights wants this property to be successful, right? And so when we're looking at that, we have to look at it and say, what's the current economic conditions? Where's the demand for tenants that want to be here, right? And then picking from those tenants, because otherwise, I mean, let's put it this way, here's maybe a good way to say it. I like most hotels, right? But if I said, hey, I'm gonna build a 50-story Four Seasons hotel with lazy river pools and 50 acres of landscape.
Yeah, so flag.
Okay, would I like that? Would it look beautiful? Yeah, but there's no economic demand for it, right?
Unless you can at this point, the blue area, did you drill down on that?
This
would be, yeah.
Oh, so that's basically an area that we talked about that a moment ago, but it's an area that's
Drill down.
earmarked for a logical multifamily area. That's a logical
If you don't
area
buy it, we don't
that
buy
is
it.
not, what's that?
How many units is that allowed?
It would depend on, how high they built it and so forth, but let's just say in the ballpark of 300 or something like that, I would think.
I mean, you know your business, so yeah, 300.
Yeah, depending on how high they built and how they have the parking situated and all that stuff. Yeah.
I just had an idea, it's getting hotter, and I haven't been to the farmer's market, but I hear that they have one in the mall, do they? What if they took one of those big buildings and like had a covered area and you call it the Oasis, and it's a gathering place for the community, and you use the current farmer's market to come in on some of that space and build something appealing, something that gives people shade, and they could do shopping, then spread out to the other, but that would be cool. You could have a swimming pool there too, the Oasis, and just like looking at it from market, the same stores we've had forever and ever, it seems like a little creative imagination. I understand you're trying to do it the same way for your tried and true success, but, and also I get the feeling that Citrus Heights is kind of, you can't really push it too much, too high, because Citrus Heights is kind of, we want to keep doing the same, but make some money off of it. You know what I mean?
Shame.
Well, I guess the way I look at it, and I gotta run here, but the way I look at it, from a global perspective, it's sort of option one is that we allow this specific plan and then sort of modernizing it, making it so there's, it complies with what the current economic demand is. That's option A. Option B is we do nothing and we let it die.
Sure.
So that's really, it's A or B. It's sort of like there's no real C or something. I mean, and certainly I would try to have this be and something that the St. Citrus Heights would be proud of. I should probably say one last thing. I'm a private ownership guy, okay? So I like looking at our buildings and seeing high occupancy and attractive buildings. I enjoy that, okay? So that's pretty good. Most developers are not in town and have private ownership. They're more about just making rent dollars or whatever. But I look at it like I want something to be proud of. I mean, I don't want to be something I'm embarrassed of. I live here, right? So,
Is your name going to be out?
what's that?
Is your name going to be out?
Well, yeah, my name kind of on it is already. I'm not going to name it after me. But I'm a local guy, though. I mean, I want to be proud of it, seriously. Of course.
Mr. Conrad, my wife and I just drove by the mall there in Yuba City yesterday, and I used to live in Yuba City in the mid to late 90s, and I actually used to work at the mall in Sears, and do like the mall area there that you did build. It looks really, really nice, so I commend you on that.
Thank you. Well, it's a fun process. I mean, it's fun to take something that's dying and make it something that's alive, and then have the community be appreciative of that. And then it brings sales tax dollars and it benefits the community. I mean, what a great thing, right? I mean, so that's really what we like to do. That's what I think it's enjoyable. I mean, we put in, like, even at that one, we recently put in palm trees, like, what it was, 8 months ago or something like that. And instead of, we have these old trees that look bad. Okay, well, palm trees aren't expensive. They're pretty expensive, right? But I looked at it and I thought, that's kind of a great thing to make it look that much nicer. I probably had like 50 people compliment us on the palm trees, like literally,
The whole area looks really nice.
yeah, it was fun, right? So,
Do we qualify for palm trees? Yeah. Are we good enough for that? I'm just asking. I'm just asking.
I think we're getting on here.
Yes.
And well, we all thank you.
Thank you. Yes,